I have quite a few things to say about this, Sean. Number one, you went back to the DNC and its money problems and all that. First of all,
hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Thank you so very much for tuning in. A shout out to my patrons and a very special thank you also to one of this channel's sponsors, Virtual Shield. You know, if you're not using a VPN by now on your desktop, tablet, or mobile device when you browse the internet, you're really exposing yourself to danger, guys. At some point, you have to get a VPN. But what is a VPN? It's a virtual private network that allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. Check it out. I'll show you how this works. You can see me here on my website, thelibertymill.com. I've already installed Virtual Shield. I just go up to this little icon, the shield up there in the upper right-hand corner. I click it, and then I connect to Virtual Shield. And now you can see that my IP address says that it's coming from Chicago, Illinois. I don't live anywhere near Illinois. So that's how a VPN works. Very simple to do. Go to virtualshield.com and download the free 30-day trial and install it. Then just click connect like I just showed you. This month, Virtual Shield is offering a back-to-school celebration special of 20% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, residential access, monthly maintenance, phone support, and VIP performance plans for as low as $3 a month. So sign up for your free 30-day trial. Protect your personal data now with a VPN. Try Virtual Shield. I'll leave the link below this video. Hey friends, welcome back. How are you? Thanks for joining us. I very much appreciate it. Guess who I have on the line? It's Frank from the Quite Frankly YouTube channel. Good guy. He also has a podcast with our friend Tracy Beans called Dark Delight. Frank joins us now. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing good, Sean. It's great. Oh, I'm doing well, I should say. I know the grammar folks are going to get me for that one. I'm doing well. The summer is progressing nicely. It's August 1st. What the hell happened to the time?
Well, you know, we were just talking about that, and I said, you know, we just should hit record because it's the type of stuff people want to hear. I mean, time is flying. I call it the quickening, but I have a neighbor friend who just retired a couple of years ago, and he said, just wait. The older you get, the faster time goes by, and it's a puzzler because we haven't gotten that much done this summer, and it's already August 1st, and the summers used to drag on forever. Remember when you were a kid? They just went on forever. And now literally it's a blink of an eye and the summer is nearly over and my youngest son starts school again on the 22nd.
Wow. Now I remember this was August 1st was still a decent time for us when we were that age and we had our summer vacation, because if you look at a 4 to 6 week period or 8 weeks or 10 weeks, we would get out late June up here in New York, and we would be back in right after Labor Day. So you talk about a couple of weeks before 4th of July, and then all of a sudden we're back at school around September 6th. That's an eternity, you know, and it's also why it hurt so badly when we went back, because you thought it would really never end. But every waking moment, I'm sure that getting older has something to do with it. As you get older, you have more responsibility. You have a different perspective on time. For example, summer vacation, if I'm in 5th grade, I'm 10 years old.
Exactly.
You think about
3 months, right?
2 years is 1/5 of your life when you're 10 years old.
Yeah.
So the perspective on time just changes. And now that we're in the social media, you know, smartphone era, every moment that we used to have for ourselves just staring at a tree somewhere is occupied by a tweet, a notification, a badge, something. So the time is just evaporating.
Well, it's a shame for kids because kids these days, boy, you sound like the crazy old man, right? When I was a boy, life was better. We didn't have the interwebs. We didn't have Twitter or Snapchat or Instagram, but it's true. I tell my kids, guys, when I was your age, I was out playing baseball all day with my buddies because we didn't have cable TV. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have iPhone cell phones at all. And that's foreign to them. I mean, I don't know. I don't think this quickening in this move towards transhumanism is anything less than a diabolical plan to destroy humanity. Because look, if you take a look at the stats, depression and disconnectedness and anxiety among teenagers and kids and probably adults has never been higher. So I don't know specifically what we can attribute that to, but I think life was better when life was simpler. I think the Amish maybe have it right, man. We need to get horses and wagons.
They definitely have something going on over there. And not only that, but as far as the entire, the grand scheme of things in the Western world goes, they're a little microcosm inside of our own country because, you know, the West is dying. Numerically, it's dying. Every Western country, I believe, is under the 2.1 child per couple replacement rate. And I think one of the only subsets of people in this country who are actually seeing a growth in their population are the Amish, and they're also a lot healthier and they have a lot more community cohesiveness and all that. As far as the transhumanism thing, on my show in the last few weeks or so, I have kept my eye out for really, I mean, they're staggering, some of these articles. And I found this one article, I forgot what it was for, but the mother was a technologist and she was a transhumanist. She described one of her children as autistic, and through that she started thinking about how technology can help children who are a little bit more impaired in the way that they socialize, or that they're able to actually move on. I mean, even when you think about people who are within the normal ranges cognitively and all that, you have people like Elon Musk that are once warned against AI and transhumanism and the singularity as the end of mankind, as the beckoning of a demon. And then all of a sudden, I took this incredible, well, if you can't beat them, join them mentality, and then went out to go and develop the Neuralink technology that we're starting to get dribs and drabs of information about. And that, of course, is supposedly a way that we can start interfacing with the AI better so that we're not left behind by our own creation one day. And this woman that was talking about, I think the headline of the article was, should I turn my child into a cyborg or something like that? And it goes beyond children children and people who can benefit from AI and this interfacing and the transhumanism to be able to overcome any kind of developmental hurdles, into how people who have nothing wrong with them whatsoever can start regulating. And I'm glad you brought up depression and all that. Can start what they hope regulating, almost as if you can equalize the music you're listening to on your iPod. You can equalize your joy. You can give yourself a boost in concentration. Or as she said, if you're sitting there and you're a little bit too brainy for all the people in the room and everybody wants to watch a really low IQ, cotton candy kind of low calorie romantic comedy, you can actually bring your intellect level down, your IQD down a little bit, so that you can just relax and suspend disbelief. So as far as the regulating of humanity, there are people out there who have some really, really concerning ideas. And it's a little, the most concerning thing about this is to actually consider yourself to be one and the same with this technology, that you can regulate it with a flick of a switch or something like that. It takes away all of the great work that we should be putting into ourselves, because we can regulate our thoughts. We can control our emotions. It just took a little bit of work at one point. It took a little bit of getting out into the world and socializing and learning what certain body language means, what a wink and a nod means, how to use the language in a more expressive, articulate way, reading, writing, all of that stuff, phonics. It's all been ripped away, and now we need, either people are looking to AI to regulate what used to just be growing up and learning about ourselves, or pills to regulate something. Whatever the hell it is, it's not conspiracy theory at all. These articles and these people, and this woman in particular, she had a background of working with intelligence agencies like the CIA.
Yeah, of course she did. Well, this is the sales pitch, right? The sales pitch is AI. We need to embrace AI, or the machines will leave us behind, right? You said it. That's the sales pitch. And I think it's funny, Elon Musk has a conundrum at this point, because I think, and I'm loosely quoting, AI scares the hell out of him, is I think what he said not long ago. And now he's really on the front line of wanting to produce these chips that will be implanted into people's brains. And we can see where this is going. It's a very scary, slippery slope. And I think that younger people who have been brought up on technology, brought up on their smartphones. When I was a kid, those didn't exist. Cell phones didn't exist. Now kids are being brought up on them. It's a slippery slope and a quick step to, well, you don't need cash, you scan your phone. The phones are cumbersome. You don't need cash. You don't need your phone. Take the chip in your wrist, scan your wrist. So it's all quickening and happening fast now. Look, I want to talk to you about a bunch of different stuff today, not the least of which is how the walls are closing in on Hillary. But first, I want to talk a little bit about geoengineering. I've got some pictures as we keep our eye on the skies, because Serial Brain 2 has said Trump is taking control of the skies. Let me show you a picture I took today. This is for everybody, including you, Frank. All right, I took this today in my area, and I showed a picture the other day. I've never seen, I shouldn't say never, but I'm seeing a lot clearer skies in normal-looking clouds where I live. I talked to Dr. Dave Janda about this. He says he noticed a big change on or around July 4th. And let's see, I've got another picture here I can share for you. I don't know how to share pictures in a row, so let me pop out. This is a picture my wife took. She was in, not the same picture. Hold on.
No, that was a Ferris wheel.
Oh, it did pop up? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it was supposed to be. Okay. It did pop up. You see the Ferris wheel?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a picture my wife took in Myrtle Beach recently. So I think that, and I'm hearing reports from others that things are getting better. And what are you seeing in your neck of the woods?
I'm thrilled that you brought this up, because personally, I have not really kept my eyes to the sky at all. But so I wouldn't be able to compare it to one thing or another. But I will tell you this: I have received emails, text messages from at least a dozen viewers and friends of mine, colleagues all over the country, people that at this point, I like listening to what people are saying and noticing, no matter what, because even if you don't know who they are, if you start seeing a trend form, it's just good to take note of. And Sean, I have been getting a lot of people talking about this in particular, that they grew up in either, right outside of Kansas City, they're near the Missouri area, they're up near the Finger Lakes, whatever it is. And they grew up with these hazy sprayed skies, these overbaked days where it's destroying everything around. It's hard to grow things. You can tell something is being meddled with. It's almost like the weather on a day-to-day basis is served up how somebody else has intended it to be. And lately, they say, I don't know what it is, but what used to be a daily or many times a week occurrence is almost non-existent. It's here and there. I'm seeing pristine blue skies, natural fluffy clouds, this haziness, these sprayed kind of layers and sheets of clouds are not there. And none of them are really coming from a scientific background. They're just coming from
Looking up. Yeah, we're just looking up at the skies. And that's why I wanted to report on this today and just keep it in the present tense, is that I want people to keep looking up, because when I tweeted about this several days back, 90%, maybe more, 95% of the responses I got from people were that they are seeing clearer skies, and 50% of those people included pictures of clearer skies with white puffy clouds. Now, I did get this today from our friend Joe. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Joe writes, was listening to your show with Janda this morning. I live in north central Florida near Georgia border. In the last couple months, we have had relatively clear skies. Then I noticed yesterday morning and this morning we had chemtrails. She says Moody Air Force Base is close by. But I replied to her and I said, maybe it's my wishful thinking at this point, because I'm very hopeful that Trump is putting an end to the chemtrail or the geoengineering program to some extent or to full extent. And I said, a lot of those look like natural cirrus clouds to me. So I think we're all familiar with what the heavily sprayed skies look like. So cup half full maybe with that picture from Joe. But I do think we just need to keep the conversation going, and we all need to keep looking up at the skies, because if Trump actually ended that program, which would have only been ramped up under Hillary, I think it would be the biggest non-publicized victory of his presidency so far.
Sean, have you ever spoken to Jim Lee or looked into his work?
Yeah, I know who Jim Lee is on YouTube, but I've never spoke to him. Geoengineering Watch, Dane Wigington is the guy I've spoken with most. I actually think those two are in conflict to some degree.
Oh, really? Well, it seems like everybody's got a conflict these days. But either way, Jim is a good friend of mine now, and I've learned so much through him and Climate Viewer, his collection of work that he's put on out there in his site. And there are people out there who are really focusing not only on the skies, but also on legislation to hold international and transnational corporations accountable for all the atmospheric testing that's going on, because there's really just no oversight there. So if this is a trend that is happening and that the skies are clearing up here at home, number one, it would be great if there was some attention put on it, because if I think that the biggest problem with something like geoengineering is that it still exists for whoever has heard of it or has heard of any aspect of it. It still exists in the average person's mind as a conspiracy theory. So if and beyond that, there's just complete ignorance on the entire topic. So if something like this is actually being addressed in a meaningful and positive way, then I think that it is in the public's best interest to know where we came from and what's actually happening. I mean, that right there should be publicized, because it's something to celebrate if it's actually real.
Well, we've seen the Harvard studies talking about geoengineering to help prevent global warming. See, that's the other sales pitch. If you're going to buy into geoengineering, the excuse is they're using geoengineering, seeding the skies with aluminum and barium to help create a shield, an unnatural shield, artificial clouds, to protect the Earth from warming further. But the flip side of that argument is, number one, you're seeding the skies with poisonous, toxic chemicals that land in the ground and do terrible things to the soil. Number two, when you create all those artificial clouds, you're actually trapping in heat. So it's the geoengineering topic is a real topic, and I'm glad people are talking about it. So for those in the comments, and I get about 2% of the comments saying, there's no such thing as chemtrails, those are contrails. I've been around a long time. The contrails, when I was a kid from a jet, they didn't stay up there all day and they didn't spread across the entire sky. So I think there's a big difference. All right, we can move on.
Well, one more thing, Sean. I where the hell did the Zoom go? I wanted to send it to you. I don't know if you've seen this, but John Brennan speaking to the Council on Foreign Relations. Did you ever see him talking about atmospheric injections, chemtrails, as a mode, his favorite tool of combating climate change?
No, but see, that's my point. We know that the globalists want to sell, like, this all goes back to Tavistock Institute and Club of Rome, right? They wanted to create a crisis, different crisis around which the whole world could rally. And some of those crises included global warming, climate change, catastrophic weather events. There's several of them. I'm forgetting what they are. I play a soundbite frequently from somebody who blew the whistle on the Club of Rome.
Ladies and gentlemen, the origins of the environmental movement as we see it began back in 1968 when the Club of Rome was formed. The Club of Rome has been described as a crisis think tank which specialises in crisis creation. The main purpose of this think tank was to formulate a crisis that would unite the world and condition us to the idea of global solutions to local problems. In a document called The First Global Revolution, authored by Alexander King and Bertrand Schneider, on pages 104 and 105, it stated, "In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers, of course, will be caused by human intervention that will require a global response." That's the origin of global warming, ladies and gentlemen.
This was all devised in the late 60s to create cataclysmic and catalyzing events around which they could really usher in their new world order. One of those things is climate change. So if you're going to buy into geoengineering is good, you're probably one of these people who buys into climate change is real, and we need the elite to save us from the climate change, which includes paying carbon taxes to the Rothschild banks.
It's apocalypse fatigue. That's what I like calling it. Apocalypse fatigue. You can be behind any kind of strife that you can create, whether it be the worsening of storms, the conjuring up of storms in certain places, flooding one area, creating a drought in the other area, whatever you want to do. If you actually have the technology to do that, and we know that people have been able to manipulate the weather since the 19th century, and of course, the first times we're seeing it actually weaponized was in Vietnam. Operation Popeye. And
where they seeded clouds, that's right, and they created torrential rain downfalls. Hey, by the way, the Rothschilds have created weather derivatives, so they bet on these events. So imagine you have the ability to cause events weather-wise, and you also have the ability to bet on what the weather's going to be. It's just another way to fleece us, man.
Exactly. And then you create and once you own the media that can support it, you create the narrative that things are getting worse.
That's
and of
right.
course, very conveniently, we can make it all go away as you just give us $100 trillion. Not only that, just a little bit of a footnote, most of that weather modification and atmospheric testing technology was developed at China Lake, where the earthquakes happened on July 4th.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's where most of that was developed there.
I hadn't heard that. Well, I've got a good segue for you here then. As we talk about time quickening and the walls closing in, and we talk about the elite now being revealed, exposed, dark to light, right? Let's talk about the walls closing in on Hillary and Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the DNC, which is bankrupt, literally. I think they're more than $5 million in debt. They don't have a real candidate to throw at President Trump, other than maybe Tulsi Gabbard. I could play a soundbite from her lately. She's definitely the best of the bunch over there, I think, in the Democratic side. You sent me a video, though, I want to play. Let me play this clip as it pertains to truth and the walls closing in on Hillary and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and John Podesta and John Brennan and the deep state, James Comey, Robert Mueller. Here it is. You sent me this. Can you hopefully hear this? Here it comes. This is Ellen Ratner from Fox News, who's speaking of her meeting with Julian Assange. This goes back to November 5th, 2016. Keep this in mind, Robert Mueller, as you continue to parrot the Russiagate fable and the leaked emails from the DNC, which the Democrats continue to say was Russian hackers. Here's the truth.
They went after Hillary.
WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks. Yeah, excuse me.
By the way, just FYI,
I got to take a WikiLeaks.
I spent 3 hours with Julian Assange on Saturday at the Ecuadorian embassy
Yeah, get
in
this.
London.
Listen to this. Go ahead.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
But one of the things he did say is that the leaks were not from the Russians. They were an internal source from the Hillary campaign or from somebody that knew Hillary, an enemy. He does not think they're from Russians. And he said Russia got credit for something WikiLeaks should have gotten credit for.
You know, I'll pause it there. Isn't it funny to watch these people tell the truth in these forums? But then when you tune into Fox News, they too will continue to parrot the official fable and omit Seth Rich's name, because that's who Julian Assange is talking about. That's who Kim.com said was the leaker. And you'll never, ever, 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 ever hear Seth Rich's name, certainly as it pertains to him being the leaker of the emails from CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, the New York Times, or sadly, Fox News.
I have quite a few things to say about this, Sean. Number one, you went back to the DNC and its money problems and all that. First of all, Eric Holder just put out a tweet a few hours ago talking about, hey, listen, we need to defend the Obama administration. It was a great success and blah, 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 and the party is so great and all this. Number one, the only thing that survived the Obama administration was Obama himself, and that was because of the press propping him up. It was a unmitigated failure all over the place, from coast to coast. They lost thousands of seats of influence. And by the time that they had to think about who was going to be his successor in the 2016 election, it was in such bad debt that is why Hillary Clinton had to come in and pretty much commandeer the entire party. Donna Brazil told us this, that the DNC was the Clinton campaign. They were the only ones with the fundraising capabilities at the time. And of course, they had tons of foreign donors, including the Qataris and the old Saudi regime and all that stuff. So as far as the DNC goes and the indebtedness and this big lie that they had such a great thing going for them at the Obama administration was a help, it's nonsense. As far as this all goes, because this, of course, ties into 2016. The Seth Rich saga is most interesting to me right now. Not only is it a mysterious unsolved murder in D.C., but putting that aside, because it really is two different things. The murder is one thing, but whether or not he was the provider of information is another thing, okay? The person at the center of this, Seth Rich, is most likely the keystone to the greatest string of crimes in our country's history, at least modern day. And in July, Sean, attorney Ty Clevenger filed a lawsuit on behalf of his client, Ed Butowski, to challenge the validity of the claims that it was Russia that hacked the DNC. Ellen Ratner, that we all just watched right there, she was flying back to the United States after attending a ceremony in honor of her late brother, Michael Ratner, who was an attorney for not only Julian Assange, but Edward Snowden, Bradley Manning too. So really in that circle of people. So Ellen Ratner stops by the Ecuadorian embassy to meet Assange for what she said was a 3-hour meeting the Saturday before the 2016 election. And Assange told her that the hack was a leak, as Bill Binney has confirmed forensically, as Cy Hirsch had stated emphatically, calling the whole Russia hoax in general a John Brennan operation. And Assange said it was Seth Rich who got the emails out to WikiLeaks when he discovered that the primaries had been rigged against Democrat voters. And Sean, let me just remind you, this is why, and I've told you this before, this is why I was prepared. I was spiritually prepared for a Hillary Clinton presidency, not because she had any visible metric of enthusiasm behind her. It was because she had already successfully stolen one election in 2016. I was sure that the fix was in for the general.
Yeah,
and,
me too. Me too.
It's just that, but this Ratner, she wanted Ed Butowski to tell the Rich family. And when he finally does in December of 2016, because at that time it was clear that the deep state's play was to blame the entire thing on Russia and the Trump campaign, he finds out that the Rich family already knew for months that Seth gave the information to WikiLeaks. But all they wanted to know was who killed their son. So I don't know. This plugs into the greater game of chicken that we're seeing play out between patriots and the cover-up artists right now, Sean. And Butowski gets his. I think here's the one of the games of chicken I'm talking about. Ed Butowski goes and gets in touch with Michael Isikoff of Yahoo News. Michael Isikoff and Yahoo News. He was a major part of the effort to substantiate some of the claims that were in that ridiculous dossier for the intelligence community by giving it some credible news coverage. The guy is a bag man. Well, Butowski gets in touch with him thinking that this guy is a journalist and he might want to know the truth. Instead of wanting to know the truth, what does Isikoff do? On July 9th of this year, he gets out ahead of the lawsuit that's been filed by Clevenger, and he publishes on Yahoo this big story about how Russia started the Seth Rich conspiracy theory. And then he released a 6-part podcast series on it to include it into that. And just 2 days ago, on the 30th of July, published another article pegging Sean Hannity and Fox News to help spread the theory too. So everybody out there is trying to get ahead of something right now, Sean.
Yeah, I saw that, and it enraged me. I'm glad you remind me of that article, that the Russians were behind the Seth Rich conspiracy theory. Okay, that's interesting, because the Russians conveniently get blamed for everything. And don't you find it really convenient that the DNC was allowed to say to the FBI, yeah, it's the Russians, we know it, they got in, they hacked all these Podesta Hillary Clinton emails, but we don't want you to see the server? And the FBI was just fine and dandy with that. I mean, it's a little bit like you calling the local police department or the FBI saying, hey, my safe, it just got broken into by the Russians and $3 million in cash and gold and silver got stolen, but you don't get to see the safe. So you don't get to look for the pry marks or fingerprints or any of the forensic evidence that backs my story. Police are just fine with that?
Oh, it gets worse than that. And I'm glad that we're bringing this up today, Sean, because it's not a dead horse that's being beaten. 2019 has yielded more on this subject than any other year so far. And it is so important because whereas everybody is arguing chapter 5, 6, 18, 19 of this story, this, the DNC server, the hacking narrative, is chapter 1. It's the prologue. The entire story doesn't exist if you address this, and nobody has been. And what you're talking about right there is a reference to CrowdStrike, which is a DNC-friendly, Google-friendly, Clinton-friendly organization that was pretty much giving the talking points to the FBI, and the FBI said, sounds good to me. James Comey's and FBI said, sounds legit enough, let's just roll with it. It got worse than that. I forget what month it was this year. It could have been late spring or whatever the hell it was that we realized that when CrowdStrike had conducted all this stuff and was giving their reports to the FBI, that the FBI had only ever seen a partial report in redacted form, and that the full report, the full unredacted report, was not only never delivered, but never requested by the FBI. They never even saw a full unredacted report by CrowdStrike. They just took the narrative and ran with it. And not only that, but the whole claims that the IRA was this big Russian troll farm that was big enough and was organized enough to take down an American election.
Well, let me interject. We have Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, in a congressional hearing stating that the Russian paid advertising amounted to $4,700.
There were 2 main ad accounts linked to Russia, which advertised on Google for about $4,700 in advertising. We also found other limited...
Total of $4,700?
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable that these people get away with this narrative. By the way, I was listening to the Adam Carolla podcast the other day. It's time that I just keep my eye on the enemy. It's like when I run on the treadmill at the club, I watch CNN. Adam Carolla, who portrays himself as a Republican, and he flies around occasionally and he does these events with, I think, Dennis Prager, who's pretty much a hardcore Zionist Republican. Carolla had on this guy who he described as a political analyst or pundit, Mike Murphy. And Mike Murphy is a self-described Republican, at least as he was introduced in this podcast. And Mike Murphy went on to say how much he dislikes Trump. So he's a Republican who hates Trump, and he wants to see Trump defeated. So I'm listening to this nonsense as this whole Russiagate fable is brought up, and Adam Carolla is asking all the wrong questions and digesting all of the bullshit coming from Mike Murphy, who conveniently left out CrowdStrike, Fusion GPS, the Democrats paid for the dossier. He leaves all of that out and says Trump is grasping for straws, and that's why they're challenging the Mueller report. He leaves out all the truth about the phony dossier, about Christopher Steele, who Mueller says was beyond my purview to discover if he was telling the truth or not. I mean, it's just absolutely astounding. And then I learned in the podcast that Mike Murphy was close to John McCain and part of John McCain's campaign and political affiliation with John McCain, who is a Rothschild puppet just like Hillary Clinton. So we can see these deep state agents. When you know the truth, it's easy to identify the deep state agents who have sold their souls to essentially the New World Order. Because if you stand against Trump and you're for anybody else who can defeat Trump, then you're not for this country, you're not for sovereignty, and I guess you're for the New World Order. I swear to God. I mean, that's what it comes down to when you're educated.
That it was there's the biggest thing, the confusing thing that happened, because obviously I didn't vote for Donald Trump until it was he is the nominee. Until then I was rooting for Rand Paul, and then for a little while there Ted Cruz. But when all was said and done, I said, okay, well, listen, I'm starting to see how this is shaping up here. I'm starting to see a lot of different weird things happening, especially between Fox News. Nobody supported the guy. And I really started thinking to myself, and I'm looking at my friends, I'm looking at my family, I'm looking at the dialogue that's being promoted on social media, and I'm saying, wow, all of the people that we grew up, at least me, growing up in the 90s and going and starting to reach a little bit more maturity, getting out of high school into college. And it seemed like everybody had this anti-establishment kind of an idea where even though you go to the voting booths and you have limited choices, ultimately everybody seemed to have this idea in their head where, hey, listen, they're all on the same side and you can't trust anybody and blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden you have a guy that comes out of nowhere. Well, the guy that comes up, he wasn't out of nowhere, Trump. And you see this unifying.
Yeah. The whole apparatus.
The whole apparatus comes
Even
down on him.
George H.W. Bush Sr., before he died, saying he's going to cast a vote for Hillary. So that tells you everything you need to know. And I always say the Bushes created the Clintons with the Mena, Arkansas drug running when Bill was governor, the CIA drug running in Mena. So the Bushes look, George H.W., former director of the CIA, becomes president. His father colluded with banker industrialists to try to commit a coup. In the early 1930s, a coup of the president. General Smedley Butler spent the rest of his life trying to blow the whistle and tell that story. There are congressional hearings. Nobody goes to prison. The Bushes and the Clintons and the Obamas are all part of the same party. That's the anti-America party, the pro-New World Order party. And if you look at the whole apparatus, including all of those people and the deep state turned against this president, doesn't that tell a very important narrative? I mean, I don't know how people can see it any other way. And still I listen to these podcasts, whether it's, Joe Rogan or Mark Maron or Adam Carolla, and everybody hates Trump. We're to believe that he's the boogeyman and life would be better if the witch was in the White House. I mean, I can't think of anything more intellectually bankrupt than saying that she should be the president, Madam President. And wanting that and wishing for that and lamenting the fact that she's not in there when she would have destroyed this country. The final nail in our coffin. I tell you what, man, look, let's do this because I don't want to run out of time. I want to share this news. Let me do a screen share just real quick. I want to show you guys this because I think it's really telling. We're really over the target by talking about this. So Jon Stewart helps get the 9/11 responders bill finally passed, right? Great. These poor sick folks, the first responders who are all dying from cancer, they should get help. But look how publicized this was. So we got Late Night with Stephen Colbert, ABC News here are the top returns on YouTube, C-SPAN, PBS NewsHour, The View, ABC News, The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, all talking about this. Meanwhile, the biggest news of perhaps the year as it pertains to 9/11 is this: New York area fire commissioners make history, call for new 9/11 investigation. How much press do you think that got, Frank?
Not much.
Zero.
Not much at all.
It got zero PR from the mainstream horror Mockingbird media because they want people to remember 9/11, never forget. Just don't remember World Trade Center 7. Just don't listen to the over 3,000, I think at this point, architects and engineers who say it's impossible for those buildings to collapse in the way they collapsed, which means explosive demolitions must have been used. Don't remember that. So I tell you, this is what we're up against, man. And
there's a little bit on Tuesday night's show. I would suggest that people watch the opening of Tuesday night's show because especially when it comes to 9/11, I did a response to Chris Cillizza of CNN who feebly tried to take swipes at Donald Trump over what he said about 9/11 first responders at the White House a few days ago. Definitely go check that out because it gets into a lot of other things, including Donald Trump's initial assessment of how those buildings fell. I put all of that in there. But I know that we're running out of time, so I do want to say a few other things real quick, Sean, and that's this. We were saying it before, and it ties into what we were just saying with the the podcasts and the overall the lamenting over Hillary Clinton still at this point, all these years later. Everybody seems right now to be trying to get out ahead of something. Isikoff is flooding the search engines with fresh Seth Rich alibis. Adam Schiff constantly talking about deepfakes, going on a deepfakes crusade. Vanity Fair and Daily Beast, they are suddenly becoming the tip of the spear of the Epstein news. Congressmen and women are making hasty trips to Italy, nonstop Twitter activity from John Brennan and the string cheese man, James Comey. Comey. And then, but the thing here is this, especially going back to what we were talking about with Seth Rich and Ellen Ratner and all that. The thing that really concerned me about the whole story, I like that the progress is being made, no matter how slow, as long as something's happening. But the thing that concerned me most about the story was that when Rich's parents were told this stuff about their son in December of 2016, according to the lawsuit, they didn't want to pursue anything other than the mystery surrounding Seth's death because they didn't want the country to blame their son for Donald Trump's presidency. Now, this right there, when I'm looking at that, I say, no, that's awful. So you're going to allow the country to languish with this nonsense, knowing it's on false pretenses, that the entire investigation, a spy campaign, was based on a phony narrative that was used as an evasive maneuver away from what the truth of the DNC leaks of 2016 really was. And that's when I realized, and it was really reinforced for me, Sean, that in many respects, we are the deep state. And let me explain. When good people don't know what is good from bad because the grooming that we've gone through has been so confusing, and that we would rather stand idly by than do what's right. When we start to forgive bad behavior because who are we to judge? Kids are being raised to be so suicidally altruistic these days. Nations without borders, governments without debt ceilings, humans without gender. So whereas we need to have some sort of hope that there are still patriots in government willing to risk it all to do the right thing and clean out all the trenches, our mission, you, me, everybody that's watching this right now, is most vital, because a good culture, raising children, educating them well, will produce more uncompromising people who will stand up to this kind of evil without first asking, what could I lose by taking a stand? You know, in life, you think about this, in this plane of existence, in order to maintain our independence on any number of issues, people first need to overcome a couple of things. Number one, people need to overcome peer pressure. They got to overcome a education system that nabs them from the point that they're preschoolers. Propaganda in media and entertainment. Now, social media in the modern age, that's a constant bombardment. And of course, family traditions, voting traditions. Now, that's one hell of a strainer that you have to pass through. And if you come out on the other end of that with your critical thinking faculties intact, it's a huge accomplishment. But that is what we really need to do. We have to fight the deep state within the society that we're living in, that actually can look past the criminality of these people and actually find themselves lamenting that we don't have a President Clinton right now. That's the real problem. Not that we have a couple thousand people inside the United States government that need to be in jail. That's not it. You know, it's so much bigger. It's so much bigger.
You know what, man? I tell you this, though. The good news is that the enemy at this point is a paper tiger, right? They've got the Mockingbird mainstream horror media on their side. But unfortunately, and maybe even the bigger problem at this point, is the Democrats, the Marxists, the fascists have big social media and the big tech giants on their side. So I'm sure you probably saw that. I think he was a computer scientist, and he was testifying that it will be very easy for these social media giants to drum up as many as, I think he said, between 3 and 15 million votes for the Democrat candidate, based on the way that they will send messaging out that may never be seen or may never be able to be proved, sent more people to the polls. I'm badly paraphrasing, but the point is...
Dr. Robert Epstein.
Yeah, that's right, Epstein. Ironic, Epstein, that's right, because we've got the Epstein pedo island stuff. So, of course, this guy has to have the Epstein name, but that should make it easy for me to remember. The point is that the social media giants and the Mockingbird mainstream media are in bed together. So they're trying to prop up the paper tiger, right? The literally bankrupt DNC, the literally intellectually bankrupt Democratic talking points. These are the people that stand for the New World Order. What is that? It's open borders. It's abortion on demand. It's even snuffing out life after a baby has been born. It's higher taxes. It's everything that is anti-sovereign and anti-human that you can imagine. It's climate change, carbon taxes. It's Agenda 2030 policies. It's getting you out of your car and into a 300 square foot hellhole in which you'll live the rest of your life living over a Starbucks. That's what it is. That's what they want. And it's a paper tiger, because if you take a look at the rallies, we've talked about this so many times, look at Trump's rallies. People are very excited about patriotism, nationalism, having a country, having a family, right? The basics that make life great, everything the New World Order hates. So let me share this. We'll do one more topic here. I'm going to share this with you. Meet Tulsi Gabbard. The liberal media is freaking out over Gabbard's destruction of Kamala Harris. Now, I caught this clip where she destroys Kamala Harris for putting a ton of people in prison, evidently, for marijuana use. And meanwhile, Kamala Harris is probably very pro-open borders, immigration, free health care for illegal immigrants, etc. My point is that Tulsi Gabbard is the only person right now who's standing up against the big social media giants, and she's suing Google. So let's hear from the lucid, patriotic Tulsi Gabbard, the only Democratic candidate I could even give any airtime to at all for being, I think, legitimate. And that's why the mainstream media despises her. Here's Tulsi on Tucker recently.
Now she's become the first presidential candidate to sue Google. She's accused them of
Of course.
Listen up.
Of course. They get an ad, but I don't.
You probably haven't even questioned what bar.
I hate it.
And of course, they get advertising. They get everything monetized. I get everything immediately demonetized. And then generally, yep, we've confirmed after a manual review, your discussion with Dave Janda about politics, because they're not pro-democratic liberal talking points, is not suitable for most advertisers. All these people need to be sued, and thank God Tulsi is suing them. Hold on. Here it comes.
We are happy to have Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard join us tonight. Congresswoman, thanks very much for coming on. Tell us
Thanks, Tucker.
The point of this suit.
Here's the bottom line. This is really about the unchecked power that these big tech monopolies have over our public discourse, and how this is a real threat to our freedom of speech and to our fair election. So this really isn't about me. It's about taking action on behalf of the American people. Because we've got to understand here that if Google can do this to me as a sitting member of Congress running for the highest office in the land, then that means they can do this to any candidate running for any office anywhere in this country, and frankly, to any person in this country. And that's why it's so important that whether you're a progressive or conservative, whether you consider yourself on the left or the right, we all have to stand united to protect our freedom of speech. Because look, today it's me, tomorrow it could be you or someone else.
I'll pause it there. So, I mean, it just needs to be said that the social media giants and the media does not like Tulsi Gabbard because she stands for some fundamental things that none of the other Democrats stand for. So she's not one of the chosen New World Order fascist candidates, man. That's the bottom line. It's the same thing they did to Ron Paul. It's the same thing they tried to do to Donald Trump.
That's what I said. When she was on the stage the first time, I told everybody, listen, she is going to get the Ron Paul treatment, and it's not because she's not a socialist. I mean, she's for weapons bans and universal health care and free tuition and progressive tax policy and all that stuff.
Right, and let me be clear. I'm not pro Tulsi Gabbard. I'm just saying that if the Democratic Party was legitimate, she is the only person that could stand a chance in a debate with Donald Trump. She's attractive. She's a female. They're all excited about having a madam president, evidently, but just not her, because she stands for a little bit too much freedom, whereas none of the rest of them do.
That's it. I mean, think about this. She distinguishes herself head and shoulders above all of them. And why? Because she believes in this radical idea of free speech. Like she on free speech and non-interventionist foreign policy. I mean, that alone, I said that would be a really interesting thing for Donald Trump to consider asking her to be Secretary of State. I mean, that would be great to have her be the top diplomat in the land. If you're talking about a non-interventionist who believes in peace and free speech.
Oh yeah, and by the way, she's a veteran, right? So I left that out. So of course the Democrats hate her. Of course the mainstream media hates her.
So there's things to really be admired here, and I knew she was going to get this treatment from her party, and this, in her lawsuit, she actually cites all of the work from Dr. Robert Epstein. So she is legit. She is hitting the nerve that needs to be hit when it comes to the control that big tech and Silicon Valley actually has on the ability for a free society to even exist. If you don't have free thought and if you don't have free speech, it's gone. And I think that it's worth noting before we get off is that what Dr. Robert Epstein was talking about, where he believes that in 2016, the low end of votes that were manipulated and influenced in favor of Hillary Clinton by
3
Google
million, right?
was 3 million.
Yeah.
And the reason, and he was talking about search engine manipulation effect. Sean, if you look into search engine manipulation effect a little bit deeper, and I've covered it for a couple of years now, the most harrowing part about the entire scheme is that 75% of the people who are influenced by the way that search results come up, by the suggested headlines on the side pop up, 75% of the people don't even know that they're being affected by it. It's all subliminal. It is all, it's psychological warfare.
It is. Well, get this. Guess what? I just heard this the other day. When you search for news on Google, 20% of the returns are CNN. In a world with millions and millions of websites, 20% of the news returns on a Google search bring up CNN. Now, you'll recall that they said, and YouTube said the same thing, they're going to start providing more authoritative sources in the search results. And this is what people are going to get. They're going to get the liberal brainwashing from Google. And if this company, Google, and YouTube specifically, do you know that YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world? Google's number one. YouTube's number two. If these companies aren't brought to heel, if there's not transparency as IG Metall and the YouTubers Union wants, IG Metall, the biggest union in Germany, they claim the biggest union in the world with 2.1 million members. They've just banded together with the YouTubers Union to demand that YouTube come to the table and provide everything that we want: transparency, equal recommendations based on merit, etc., monetization based on merit, transparency regarding demonetization or channel removals or strikes. Because when they give you a strike, they don't tell you what the offending language was. You could have, like this interview, it's almost a 1-hour interview. If I get a strike for it, they won't tell me what the offending language was, but it may be a hate speech strike. It may be a community inciting violence strike. So it's preposterous because they don't provide transparency at all, and they're extremely biased. And to your point, if Google isn't brought to heel, whereas we snuck by a victory here and we thought Hillary would steal the election, and she wasn't able to, in 2020, they're going to steal the election.
They're going to try. Absolutely.
And then what? Are they going to blame it on Russians? I mean, they'll blame it on Russians if Trump wins a second term.
Yeah. No, it's everything is on the line. 2016 was an amazing victory, and 2020 is really a lot of things are on the line there because the Russian thing, the influence there, the people just got to speak up, and I hope that there's safeguards in place for the chicanery that's definitely on the way. But Sean, I think this is one of the best times we had together.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I better call something out though, buddy. Over your right-hand shoulder in the back and your bookcase is an owl. Let's just clear this up. You're not some Bohemian Grove Illuminati dude, are you? What's up with the owl?
Lauren just loves owls. There's owls all over the.
I'm just teasing you. If I don't bring it up, somebody else will. I just saw that. That's hilarious.
Oh, hold on a second.
You better show Lauren. They have an owl on our dollar bill up in the corner. Have you seen that, right?
Yes.
And of course, at the Bohemian Grove, they worship the big owl.
Yeah, no,
Moloch.
I understand that. I didn't show her the owl on the dollar though. But that is toilet paper up there. It says somebody gave me Obama toilet paper for Christmas. I know they make the Trump toilet paper. Plenty of people have that, so I can have this.
Thought maybe it was a roll of dollar bills.
Hey, listen, that's what they're worth these days now, right?
Well, we worry about it. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Frank, this was a fun conversation, man. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Do you have a website? I know you're on YouTube, as quite frankly.
Yeah, quite frankly, podcast.com. That's where I have the Twitch embed there. I have all the blog. I have all the information of where to find the show and how to contribute to the show. So that's a nice place to just get information. But I'm live on YouTube and Periscope and Twitch and D Live every night at 7 p.m. And everything else, I'm pretty easy to find.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks for your time, brother. I really appreciate it. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You know how much I appreciate you, my patrons especially, the less than a fraction of 1%. Thank you so much for standing with us, because literally Fox News, CNN, they get all the monetization on anything they report regarding politics. But when I have a political discussion, it immediately gets demonetized. And as in the case with the one with Dave Janda that I just posted the other day, confirmed by manual review, not suitable for most advertisers, which begs the question. I guess advertisers don't think that libertarians and Christians and conservatives shop. I don't know. It's very puzzling. Hey, guys, if you want to take a bite out of Google, though, because they really do need to be brought to heel, try the Brave browser. I'll leave the link below this video. It is more than twice as fast as Google's Chrome, and it will not spy on you. It's also more than twice as fast as Safari. It's got a built-in ad blocker, which you can turn on or turn off. It's great. I think you'll love it. Try it. The link is below. And thank you so much for tuning in, guys. For real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com. The antidote to corporate propaganda. Cool, man. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, man. That was awesome.
And it would not surprise me, Sean, if we start to see some medical issues arise with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton in the near future.